and no disrespect to anyone that's listening to this that's on dating apps. I'm not on dating apps. But if you're on a dating app, you're immediately in the replaceable
Yeah.
category.
So '06, how different is the dating market then? So in '06, this would have been the first year of MySpace. We don't have Facebook until like 2010. And I saw you had some videos of like what happens when you talk to a girl over Facebook. And it was so interesting because of the way things changed. 2011, we get Instagram. And then we start having, the Instagram is the first point at which I saw a guy had more followers than another guy. And then he was more attractive to a certain group of women. And then people started stunning on each other on Instagram. And then the other thing that I noticed, and I've had several guys come on the show and say this, is like from the time of like, say, '03 to right now, you would go to the hottest nightclub in the city and all the prettiest girls in the city were in that nightclub. If you go out in Los Angeles to the hottest nightclub in the city, you don't see any of the prettiest girls anymore because they're making $300K a month on OF. It's just, there's just been this big, it's almost like social media has sucked a lot of the girls out of these IRL situations. I'm just curious, what has been your observation since like '06 to right now?
God, so much has changed in dating, but I always say the fundamentals of attraction has stayed the same. It stayed the same. It hasn't changed. But yes, the biggest issue is the whole online kind of aspect. OnlyFans, I think it's more of a thing in America. It does happen in England, but I can just imagine LA and Miami. My God, every next girl probably has got an OnlyFans. Not so much the case in London, but it does happen. The dating apps, that's been the big thing. So dating apps, basically, when they first came out, yeah, okay, people felt this is the silver bullet. I don't need to approach anyone, don't need to make an effort. Just got to, say the right things online and then meet up and it's all good. But what people have found out is that now, especially now, it's starting to eat up their time more than if they had approached a woman in real life.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a time saver. It's not a time saver anymore. In fact, you're wasting more time because you're going back and forth. Everyone's ghosting each other because the moment, and no disrespect to anyone that's listening to this that's on dating apps, I'm not on dating apps. But if you're on a dating app, you're immediately in the replaceable category. Personally, I don't want to be in a replaceable category, but you're immediately putting yourself in that category. You are one swipe away from the new, shinier thing that's waiting. So everyone's kind of thinking, especially men, the only men that do well really out of dating apps are the top 10%, the really, really good looking guys. Guys that are just like average looking, they're not doing well. What they're getting is the leftovers. They're getting the leftovers. They're getting the women who are on there just for ego boosts, women who just want extra people to follow them on their social media accounts. They're getting the catfish. They're getting all the crap, basically. And they just, they're going back and forth on these messages. Then when they actually do, 'cause it's like playing a slot machine, isn't it? It's like, oh, get the jackpot at some point. And then they meet, they get a few dates. And guess what? Girl's fatter than her picture. And he's shorter than his picture, and everyone's disappointed. And I think people are starting to realize, unless they're in the top 10%, again, they're starting to realize, hey, I'm not really getting the results that I thought I was going to get. But it's like it's an addiction. It's like a slot machine. I know so many women also, they delete their apps and they go back to it after 3 months. They can't cope without it. They need that again.
Yeah.
They're so reliant on it. And that's, I think, something about, I'm sorry, again, to anyone that's listening to this that's on dating apps, I don't mean to offend them, but I'm going to speak quite candidly here. It's something very unmasculine about being on a dating app for a man. Women, I get it, but men, it's like you're in this kind of like passive state. You think you're being active, swiping left and right. It's not very masculine. What's masculine is going up to a woman, approaching her. There's a thrill in it. So I know a lot of my students who ditched the dating apps, who went back to approaching a woman, they said there's a thrill. It's an adrenaline. Even when they didn't always get the woman, there was something about the approach, the sparring, the banter, the eye contact, just the rush of it. There's something masculine about that, a man going for what he wants. If you're on a dating app, you're just in this sort of passive and active state, convincing yourselves, no, I'm really being proactive. It's not. I mean, women also, by the way, tip for your listeners, for your viewers, women are more attracted to men who aren't on dating apps. So lie and tell her you're not on dating apps. Take a line between you and those guys who are. Say, you know what? I think it's weak. I think men who rely on dating apps are weak. I like to go for what I want. If I see a beautiful woman, I'm approaching her. Make that line draw that line between you and them. That's a little tip.
That's so great. So to go back to what you're saying before, but there's about 6 times as many men as women on dating apps. It's really great. Next week, my guest is Aaron Clary. He's an economist who studies basically the economics of dating, meaning how much effort and time does an average man put in order to go on a date. Some of the stats that he goes over is like a woman will left swipe 6,000 times for every one date she goes on. There's this one video, I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok. It's pretty crazy. This guy did 1 million right swipes, went on 2 dates, and then like didn't even hook up with anyone. And he was not a bad, he wasn't a good looking guy, but he was just kind of an average looking guy. The data when women are surveyed on these, and not just dating apps, but also eHarmony and OkCupid, is that 80% of men on these apps are deemed to be below average attractiveness. 20% of men are deemed to be attractive, but only 4.5%, you said 10%, but about 4.5% of men are so attractive that women will actually pursue them. I have some guys that work in my company. They're in that 4.5%, and their dating apps are great. They're right swipes. They're going on several dates a week. The rest of them, it's exactly what you said. When you see an attractive woman, this is maybe just a Vegas thing, but if you see an attractive woman and she right swipes on you, she is a prostitute. She's trying to get you to go down her OnlyFans funnel. She has some sort of mental disorder, or you've met someone who's just getting back into the dating market. She's, maybe in her mid 40s and has like 4 children with her, and she's getting back into it this way for like short-term casual dating. The thing I have to say, and this is another thing, Kezia, an attractive woman does not need an app for short-term sexual access. Let me say that again. Attractive women do not need an app for short-term sexual access. You were like, I'm worried about offending people. I'm not worried about offending them. I completely agree with you. When you looked at Ashley Madison, which was like a cheating app, it was 98% men on there and 2% women. Women do not need an app for short-term sexual access. They don't. And so that's what I was saying before. That's why I love what you were talking about before.
They're not on there for that. Women are on there looking for relationships, most of them. There are a few, of course, that are looking for just a hookup, but a lot of them are using it for relationships. And the men know that. It puts the man in a stronger advantage, to be honest, than the women.
Yeah.
But, your friends that you've mentioned, these top 4% guys, why are they on dating apps?
Because it's easy. They just right swipe and girls show up. It's
masculine. That's not masculine.
Yeah.
There's something about every guy I've met who said I'm not on dating apps. Immediately he goes up in my estimation. Immediately.
Nice.